Russian military forces have almost completely left the region surrounding Ukraine's capital, Kyiv.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Russia should bear proportionate punishment.
After what the world saw in Bucha, sanctions against Russia must...
Did the Italian authorities truly seize Putin's superyacht? Since Russia invaded Ukraine in late February, the international community, in a unified response, unanimously began cracking down on Russian oligarchs with strong ties to the Kremlin, including Putin himself. The Sherazade is among the latest Russian-owned mega-yachts to be seized as a result of sanctions imposed after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The $700 million luxury mega-yacht with ties to Putin was seized on May the 7th after it appeared ready to set sail and had been refloated. An Italian police investigation found significant connections between the ship called the Sherazade and the Russian government and seized it after it had been loaded with food and supplies and refloated, possibly in an effort aimed at leaving before it could be seized. The 459-foot vessel spent the previous 9 months in a dry dock in the Tuscan port of Marina di Carrara, and while Italian authorities did not specify whether Putin owns the super yacht or not, media reports are rife that the yacht is none other than Putin's himself. Another $300 million super yacht known as the Amadea and owned by sanctioned Russian oligarch Suleiman Kerimov was also seized by officials in Fiji within the same week. Russian oligarchs in their hundreds have already been sanctioned by the United States and across Europe, with several others fearing that their assets in the West can come under sanctions as well. But how do all of these sanctions affect the ongoing war in Ukraine? Can these sanctions mount enough pressure on the Kremlin's elites to cause Putin to disengage Russian troops in Ukraine? It's been 3 months since sanctions have been unleashed on Russia and its oligarchs across the globe. But how much more time is required before these sanctions prompt a major shift with the situation in Ukraine? Will this recent and more direct sanction on Putin by the Italian authorities be the final nail to the coffin for the powers that be in the Kremlin? Well, in this video, we'll be detailing just how the seizure of this super yacht with reported ties to Putin himself can result in a serious turning point for the ongoing Russian-engineered humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. Have sanctions worked on Putin in the past? Will this sanction be any different? Just before we get into the details, make sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button and smash that notification bell to receive notifications of when we post more mind-blowing videos about one of the most influential and feared men in the world right now. Do leave us a comment as well, as we'd love to read your opinions on how you think sanctions have worked on Russia in the ongoing war this far. Ready? Let's dive in. How exactly would freezing vessels and super yachts help stop the ongoing invasion in Ukraine? Well, you're definitely not the only one having these thoughts, but Europe's warfare experts seem to believe that these sanctions could just do the trick. The moves to freeze or confiscate luxury vessels comes as Western governments intensify efforts to track, identify, and seize assets around the globe belonging to sanctioned Russians with ties to the Kremlin. The US government had announced a new task force very early in March that would sweep the US of assets belonging to Russian oligarchs and oversee the imposition of sanctions on these Russian elites who have helped to finance Putin's unprovoked war in Ukraine. The European Union has likewise taken a similar move, and only a month after German authorities seized the world's largest super yacht after official confirmation that the vessel had links to Russian billionaire and business tycoon Alisher Usmanov. Usmanov was Russia's richest man up until 2015, and his super yacht named Dilbar after his mother extends over 500 feet and is equipped with 2 helipads, whilst also boasting the largest indoor swimming pool ever installed on a private vessel. The US Treasury Department estimates that Usmanov's yacht is worth about $735 million. A statement from the Italian financial police about the seized Sherazade reads, "After verification by the fiscal authorities, it has come to light that there is a significant economic connection between the owner of the Sherazade and senior elements of the Russian government." It has been recommended that the yacht be placed on the current European Union sanctions list, and the Minister of Finance in Rome has agreed. The exact owner of the Scheherazade was not established in the statement, but several US tabloids and supporters of the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny have all linked the vessel to President Putin. Other reports suggested that the yacht is owned by Eduard Kudenatov, the former chief of Russian energy giant Rosneft, who is not currently a target of EU sanctions. The 6-deck Scheherazade is one of the largest and most expensive privately owned boats in the world, with space equivalent to 2 apartment blocks. The yacht has room for 18 guests in 9 luxury cabins, in addition to a crew of 40, residing in 20 cabins, and boasts 2 helipads, a royal suite, a swimming pool, a spa, and a beauty salon. The yacht's true ownership has been cloaked in absolute secrecy since its launch in 2020. Many superyachts have already been linked to Russian billionaires, but their ownership, like with the Scheherazade, is shrouded in secrecy, as they are often registered through a series of offshore companies. Several have already been seized by Western countries. Marina di Carrara is in a part of Tuscany that has been very popular with wealthy Russians. It is about 12 miles to the south of the upmarket resort of Forte di Marmi and is packed full with expensive restaurants that offer menus in Russian. For weeks, the Italian police had been trying to find out who owns the vessel, before eventually making a headway very early in May. They obtained information suggesting that many of the crew were members of the Federal Protection Service, which provides security for the Russian president. Ukraine has pressed the international community to impose harsher sanctions on Russia as it has continued its deadly war in Ukraine, which has lasted for well more than 3 months now. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky specifically referenced the mega yacht in a March address to Italy's parliament in a plea for action. In his address, Zelensky passionately beckoned on the Italian parliament to take action, saying, "Don't be a resort for murderers. Block all their real estate, accounts and yachts, from Scheherazade to the smallest ones. Block the assets of all those who have influence in Russia." Zelensky has also slammed EU nations that continue to purchase Russian oil, its #1 export. The US, along with several European nations, have made moves to cut Russian oil ties, while others have pledged to do so by the end of 2022. The impact of the unprecedented economic sanctions imposed on Russia by the international community in the wake of its full-scale invasion of Ukraine has largely achieved the desired results. The swiftness and intensity of the penalties crashed the ruble, forced the Russian stock market to close, and sent Russians to line up at ATMs to withdraw dollars from their bank accounts. The Russian economy was basically in a free fall until measures were put in place to curb it. Russia's central bank responded by sharply hiking interest rates to 20% and imposing strict capital controls. These interventions, along with Russia's still intact ability to sell its oil and gas abroad, helped create a buffer against the economic chaos after the initial sanctions shock. The West's sanctions are isolating Russia, cutting it off from key imports that it needs for commercial goods and its own manufacturing to make its economy work. Russia is facing a deep recession, one that the Bank of Russia says will be both transformational and structural in nature. Russia's GDP is expected to shrink by about 8.8% in 2022. Inflation is expected to clock in as high as 23%. And Russia is looking at a looming debt default. All of these will mean hardship for ordinary Russians, who are already seeing their real incomes shrink. Some Russians in their tens of thousands have tried to flee, especially those in tech, prompting a potential brain drain. Russia has ceased publishing a lot of economic data, a tactic experts claim is Moscow's attempt to obscure the effects of sanctions. The US and European allies have continued to pile on more penalties, refining and sharpening sanctions on Russia, all in an effort to put more pressure on Putin to stop his invasion of Ukraine. Even without more escalation, the sanctions regime against Russia is one of the most aggressive in history. One thing is also very clear. Over time, these sanctions will make it harder for Russia to rebuild its tanks, manufacture cruise missiles, and finance a war. After the US and EU put targeted sanctions on Russia in 2014, following its annexation of Crimea and the Donbas invasion, the Russian government took measures to sanction-proof its economy by building up some $640 billion in gold and foreign reserves. The intensity of the latest sanctions has rattled Russia's acclaimed fortress economy, and it remains unclear if they'd be enough to force Putin to give in, or how long it might take for Russia's economy to fully recover from these sanctions. Since 2014, sanctions have hit the Russian economy badly. It has grown by an average of 0.3% per year, while the global average was 2.3% per year. Still, Putin proceeded with his invasion of Ukraine, despite threats of more sanctions. With the new sanctions imposed, Russia's economy is expected to reduce by 2.5 to 3% a year, losing about $50 billion per year. According to experts, the Russian economy is not likely to grow significantly again until the Kremlin has persuaded the West to ease the sanctions, a move that would warrant that the ongoing war in Ukraine is first stopped as a precondition. But will Putin ever consider sulking up to the West? Disclaimer: this is purely an informational video, and we're in no way promoting or approving Putin's recent action in any way.